All right. So can you all tell me what is the last thing you people have written in your notebooks?
Till ovary.
What did you write?
I think till ovary.
Ovary. Okay, so we have had discussed until the female reproductive part, that was the pistil or the carpel. We saw how it is made up of three parts, right? Stigma, style, and ovary. You people know that the stigma is the landing platform for the pollen grains. So whenever the pollen grains will be shed, they will come and they will land on the stigma itself. Then the part that will connect the stigma to the ovary is the part called as the style. So the style is sort of like a connecting portion. This is from where the pollen tube was going to pass through and reach the ovary. Now inside the ovary, there will be an ovule present. Okay, and inside the ovule, the female gamete, that is the egg cell, is going to be there. Furthermore, when we talk about the next thing, now see, the male reproductive parts of, we have studied the female reproductive parts, we have studied, we know the male gametes also and the female gametes also. Now, how will the sexual reproduction be successful? When the male gamete, that is the pollen grain, gets transferred from the anther to the stigma of the female flower. This transferring process is nothing but pollination. So if you see in this particular picture, how the pollen grains are being released. These are the pollens and they are released from the anther, right? Each of these anther have thousands and thousands of pollen grains made. Now, they get released from this flower and either with the help of an insect or with the help of the wind or with the help of the water. It could be anything. The anther could be transferred to the stigma of another flower, and this transferring process is called as pollination. Is it clear, students? Now, depending upon from where the pollen grain is coming and everything, the pollination is of various types. So when we talk about pollination, so it is the process of transferring the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower. The general, you can say, definition of pollination is this only. Furthermore, when we talk about why does this need to happen? Why is pollination important? Why is it necessary? So the transfer of pollens is necessary. Why? Because it leads to fertilization. Because if the pollen grains will not be transferred, then the gametes, the male gametes, the female gametes, they'll not be able to meet each other. And if they'll not be able to physically meet each other, then they'll not be able to fuse to form a zygote. So this is why the transfer of pollen grain is very, very important. Now, depending upon the source of pollen means from where the pollen grain is coming. The pollination is of two types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Now, self-pollination is the type of pollination in which self-pollens are coming. Now, further, it could be of two types. If you see over here, for example, this is a flower, okay? And this is a pot. So when the pollen grains from this flower gets transferred to this flower itself, meaning from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, then we call it as self-pollination, right? Another case which could be in the self-pollination will be if there's another flower in the same plant. So pollen grains could be transferred from here to here. right? This is also self-pollination only. Why are we calling it as self-pollination? Because here the gametes are being transferred from one flower to another flower. But again, why is this self-pollination? Is because the plant is same. It is happening in a single plant. So the kind of pollination when the pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or of the different flower. So when it is in the case of the same flower, we call it as autogamy. And when is it in, like when this is in the case of a different flower, but the plant is same, so we call it as jejunogamy. So here, now tell me one thing, students. If the flower is different and the plant is same, do you think there will be any change in the genetics of the plant or genetics of the pollen? Tell me. Yes or
It will
no?
be same.
Yes, it will be same. Everyone switch on your videos. Where did you all go? So when the plant is same, that means genetically same kind of gamete is going to be transferred. There's not going to be any variation, any difference in the genotype. But on the other hand, if you see this example, so here this is plant number 1 and this is plant number 2. So here what you can see that the pollen grains are being transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another, like from the anther of one plant to the stigma of another plant. So this kind of pollination is called as cross-pollination, another name for which is xenogamy. Xenogamy. Now, the question comes along, will here there will be genetically different pollens? So yes, 100% genetically different pollens are going to be present here. So the pollen grains are transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower. Or you can say from the anther of one plant. Let's to the stigma of another plant. So this type is called as cross-pollination on or xenogamy. Here, the pollen is genetically different. Whereas in the case of self-pollination, it is genetically same kind of pollen that is coming. Understood, students? So
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
the case. These are the types of pollination that are there. Now, furthermore, when the pollen gets transferred, okay, after that, there are a lot of things that the pollen grain has a very tough coating present on it so that it doesn't get destroyed while being transferred. So tell me one thing, among the unisexual and bisexual flowers, which one will have self-pollination and which one will have cross-pollination?
Cross-pollination is
So you,
Cross-pollination will be present in
asexual and other one will be present in asexual.
unisexual will have self-pollination and bisexual will have cross-pollination, right? Okay. Now, after the pollen grain has landed on the stigma, then the stigma will start to recognize whether the pollen grain is its own pollen grain or something that is genetically so different that it is not needed at all. So now this pollen grain that will germinate. Once like it gets accepted by the stigma, then a phenomena called as pollen tube germination takes place. So pollen tube germination is basically the phenomena wherein the pollen grain grows a tube-like structure which goes up until the ovule portion so that the gametes will be transferred. So you see here how it is going from the throughout the year to the ovules. portion. So after the pollen grain lands on the stigma of the right type, then a phenomena called as pollen tube germination takes place. So in the tube germination, pollen grain gives rise to a long and tube-like structure, which enables it to transfer the male gamete to the egg cell. So see, this is how it happens. Initially, pollen grain is spherical. Then it starts to develop a very long tube-like structure which delivers the gamete to the egg cell. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes.
Any doubts? All right. Okay, now you people write down about pollination. Acha, you people have written about this thing, the types of flowers, bisexual and unisexual. Is this there in your
No,
notebook? No.
no.
Okay, let me tell you about this also. That see, in general, now everyone knows that on the basis of sexuality, there are two types of flowers, right? There are unisexual flowers, that in one flower, there will either be only the male reproductive part, meaning only the stamen, or in one flower, there are going to be only the pistil, never both. So this kind of a flower is called as unisexual. Uni means one. So either only the male parts in a flower or only the female parts in a flower. Example, papaya, watermelon, these are the unisexual flowers. On the other hand, there are the bisexual flowers. Bi means two. So in one flower only there is going to be the male reproductive part also, the female reproductive part also. So this is what we call as bisexual flowers. So remember, in the unisexual flowers, cross-pollination will happen, isn't it? Because there's no male and female in one. So obviously the pollen grain has to travel another elsewhere. So in unisexual flowers, always cross-pollination takes place. Now in bisexual flowers, the male and female are in one. So no external pollen is required. It will undergo self-pollination. So those flowers, those plants that have bisexual flowers are hibiscus, that is China rose, and mustard. Clear, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Then comes the gametes of a flower. Like in general, the plants, the male gamete are the pollen grains and the female gamete is the egg cell. Always remember that both the gametes will definitely 100% without a doubt will be haploid. And quickly tell me, what is haploid, students? What is the meaning of haploid?
Haploid means one. Like
One
type.
what? One what? Hmm?
Like both the male and female together one is haploid.
One set of chromosome. One haploid means a single set of chromosome is present. Diploid means two sets of chromosomes. Sets of chromosome. Always remember, this is very important. So it has one set of chromosome. Clear, students?
Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
Now you note down this much, then we will see the fertilization process.
Well done.
Everyone's done till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright, very good. See, students, always remember haploid and diploid. Never forget it, okay? It's very, very important.
I'm done.
Everyone's done? Shall I scroll down, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright, very good. Put the heading pollination.
Ma'am, should we draw the diagram?
Yes, roughly. Not very artistic. You can draw it roughly so as to just to get the idea what is happening during pollination.
London,
Ma'am, can you go up? Ma'am, to the picture. Ma'am, done.
London,
Done? Everyone's done?
Yes, ma'am.
London.
Everyone's done. Shall I scroll down?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm done. Ma'am, that it's not visible. What's that? Orthogamy?
Autogamy. 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 And when it is onto a different flower in the same plant, that is jejunogamy.
Okay.
Done? Shall I scroll down, students?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm done. I finished the part.
Yes? Is anyone saying something?
It's not the question.
Yes, what's your question, Umair?
No, can you show the question?
Acha, question above. See, students, wherever there are questions, you write the answers also below it. Okay, just do not leave the question alike.
Mandal. Mandal. Ma'am done.
Everyone's done till here? All right. Now see this thing, students. The agents that cause the pollination or that bring about the pollination, we call them as the pollinators. Now, pollinators are those agents, if you can call them as agents or those things that actually help in the transferring of the anthers, like the pollen, to the stigma. So, the agents that bring about the pollination, we call them as pollinators. And the pollinators, depending upon whether they are living or whether they are non-living. So, those non-living pollinators are called as abiotic pollinators, whereas the living pollinators are called as the biotic pollinators. Understood? Now, the example of the living pollinators would be insects, animals, birds, right? And particularly the most common type of biotic pollinators are honeybees. They are the most common type. After that, we have the abiotic pollinators. Abiotic pollinators are the ones that are non-living. So, such as wind, such as water. Now, in the case of abiotic pollination, meaning when it is being done by wind or water, it's like a chance factor. Maybe you can say, pollen grains could land on the right type of stigma, may not be, because the water and wind will not flow according to the plant or anyone. But when we talk about biotic pollinators, you know that yes, here if the insect is coming, it will take the, you can say, pollen grains from one plant, move to the another plant and then transfer. So that's the case. Is it clear to everyone? Pollinators, these are the agents that bring about the pollination. Now, after the pollen grains have been transferred to the stigma, now the pollination is completed. Pollen tube growth also happens, and then the male gamete fuses with the female gamete, which is found in the ovule or in the ovary, and form a diploid zygote, meaning a haploid male gamete, a haploid female gamete, and when they fuse, what we get is a diploid zygote. Diploid means two sets of chromosomes are going to be present in that organism. Now, after the zygote has been formed, now this zygote will develop into an embryo, and the embryo will develop into the future plant. So this is how the fertilization actually happens. So after the fertilization is done, the zygote undergoes several divisions to make the embryo, which becomes further the future plant. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts, students? All right, okay. Oh, you can note it down now.
I'm done. I'm done.
Well, let's do this. So let's just keep it till here only. Does anyone have any doubts?
No.
What about the others? All of you are sleeping. Why don't you people respond in the class? I don't understand this. I ask you all to switch on your videos. All of you keep your videos off, and I don't know what you people do. Neither do you respond, nor do you ask